The mystery surrounding the details behind One Piece's fabled Buccaneer race has been a point of contention among fans for so long now, and yes, it goes without saying that Ichiro Oda has been keeping this secret quite close to the chest. In fact, it makes the mangaka GOAT look like a bona fide evil genius, letting the fans fight, argue, and discuss it among themselves while he nonchalantly lounges on a throne made of millions of yen bills. Kidding aside though, the whole deal about One Piece's Buccaneer race might very well prove to be one of the series' most world-shattering, mind-blowing revelations that we're going to get. But while we wait, we're here to join the fray and provide you with our own insights as to what this near-mythical race of seafarers might entail for One Piece's final saga and the entire series as a whole. So hold on to your straw hats as we dive deep into One Piece lore and try to decipher what the Buccaneer race is all about. Spoilers are ahead, guys. You've been warned, so let's get to it. Who are the Buccaneers? As far as Oda-sensei's world is concerned, the Buccaneers are a race of people who are larger than the average human, but shorter than your typical giant. Now, whether their existence comes from crossbreeding between humans and giants is still up for debate. Though we can tell you that aside from their prodigious height, which is comparable to, say, a professional basketball player like the Greek Freak, there's not a lot of differences between a regular human and a Buccaneer in the world of One Piece. Sure, they're physically stronger given their physiques, but their strength levels fall more within their quote-unquote reasonable range. That is to say, you won't see Buccaneers single-handedly sinking a marine vessel with their bare hands the way Dory and Brogy's crew does. Culturally, the Buccaneer race is infamous for being legendary seafarers. We mean, come on, they're literally a people whose name is synonymous with piracy. But more importantly, this fabled tribe is responsible for coming up with the myth of Sun God Nika. Speaking of, that whole story about a shining, golden, smiling god? Yeah, that's gonna play a big part in our analysis, and perhaps even the entire remainder of One Piece's final arc. In addition to the Nika myth, the Buccaneers, to put it simply, were the most punk rock pirates the world of One Piece has ever seen. This is a race who values the virtues of freedom, liberty, and individuality above all. Eat your heart out, Superman. So far, so amazing, right? The question is, why is it that we've barely seen the Buccaneers throughout the series? Oda-sensei's calculating storytelling chops aside, there's a whole harrowing reason behind this. The history of the Buccaneer race. Up until chapter 1110 of Ichiro Oda's seminal manga series, we've only gotten a few scant details as to what happened with the Buccaneers. First and foremost, we know that the world government, primarily the world nobles, has driven this race of large, freedom-loving humanoids to near extinction. As to when this exactly happened, well, we've yet to find out. But what we do know is that the world nobles, aka the elders, went on a scorched earth campaign to erase the Buccaneers from the face of the planet. The reason behind this? Well, that's another mystery that Oda has yet to reveal, but it's been mentioned that the Buccaneers committed a grave crime against the world government that spurred its higher-ups to basically conduct genocide on them. In fact, we've had a pretty heartbreaking glimpse of this murderous campaign during the Egghead arc, as we fans bore witness to Bartholomew Kuma's origins. In it, we find out that the man who would one day become a cybernetic superweapon of the world government belongs to the Buccaneer race. Kuma was born a significant amount of time after the world government had all but succeeded with their extermination campaign, at a point in history where the Buccaneer population was already dwindling. During his youth, Kuma and his family lived in the Sorbet Kingdom. It was a peaceful existence until the world government found out about their Buccaneer lineage, decided to capture them, and turn them into slaves for the world nobles. If you thought that was bad enough, wait until you hear about how Kuma's mom died from disease during captivity, and how his father, a preacher named Clap, was shot right in front of him simply because the world nobles didn't like hearing the man telling his kids stories that will make Kuma forget, even for a second, that their life is a living hell. Jeez, that's dark, Oda. And that's all we know about the Buccaneers so far, including which characters may categorically be confirmed as belonging to their race. Of course, Oda-sensei will most likely reveal more about it as One Piece's final saga goes on. But for now, we can only ask, why is the world government so determined to not just eradicate the Buccaneers, but completely strike them from the history books? The secrets of the Buccaneer race. Now, before we begin, we have to tell you guys that you should take what we're about to tell you with a grain of salt. We're going by what Oda-sensei has provided us at this point with One Piece, right up until its 1110th chapter. For starters, we can speculate on how exactly the world government was able to drive the Buccaneers to near extinction. Remember, this is a race of people that, for all intents and purposes, are physically stronger than your average human. Think of it this way, it's like a bunch of uniformed whiny billionaire brats going against an entire tribe of Francis Ngannus. Plus, it's not like the Buccaneers are a bunch of savages with rudimentary tools either. They're technologically advanced enough to go on the high seas and participate in some good old-fashioned piracy. Based on what we know about how the world government operates, there can only be two ways with which they initially conducted their Buccaneer extermination campaign. First, it's not too much of a stretch to think that, much like other tribes and islands that wouldn't bow down to their oppressive rule, the world nobles basically pillaged the Buccaneers' homeland and made it the setting for their triennial native hunting festival. You heard that right. The world nobles basically turned God Valley into their own version of the Purge, where they ruthlessly killed its natives. But again, we also know that the world nobles are a bunch of weasels who wouldn't risk getting their heads bashed in by a Buccaneer, which leads us to our second theory, that the world nobles called for a buster call on the tribe. This is more convincing, especially when you think that up until the Egghead arc, the Buster Call was the world government's most effective weapon of mass destruction. Not only does this ensure that the world nobles' fragile little butts won't get harmed this way, but it also affords them a more efficient genocidal experience. Just writing that makes us want to get in the shower for a long time. But perhaps the most striking revelation about the Buccaneers so far comes from the genius inventor and creator of the pacifistas, Dr. Vegapunk, who, in an otherwise innocuous throwaway line, upon seeing the pacifista Kuma act on its own will, overriding its directives, mentioned how the Buccaneers were said to have a special characteristic beyond their strong bodies. After all, your people once. Oda-sensei cleverly cut off Vegapunk's line there too, effectively making us yearn for more of the race's secrets. And chances are slim we're ever going to find out about it from the old scientist too, considering that there's a good chance Vegapunk's gone the way of the dodo. There might be a glimmer of hope that the scientist might still divulge more information about the Buccaneers using the pre-recorded broadcast he's been sending since chapter 1109, but don't get your hopes up. Chances are it's going to be more about how scummy the world government elders are, instead of it being about the Buccaneers. But if we were to presume anything about this fabled people's special ability based on what Kuma exhibited, it's pretty clear that, for all intents and purposes, the Buccaneers possess what might be considered an indomitable will, a quality that fits right into their very own culture of freedom, liberty, and individuality. And it's a trait that we can argue has been one of the driving themes of One Piece ever since the beginning. The world government represents oppression, pure fascism. They're diametrically opposed to what the Buccaneers stand for, which also might explain what this grave crime their propaganda machine has been spreading. If nothing else, the Buccaneer race is guilty of having free will and the ability to think for themselves. It's basically the kryptonite of any stupid fascist out there. We've painted the Buccaneer race as this noble, oppressed group so far, but does that mean that we can categorically conclude that each and every member of this tribe has a lawful good, or, at the very least, a chaotic good alignment? Well, not really. Blackbeard might be a Buccaneer. Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard, is shaping up to be One Piece's overarching big baddie in the final saga. And you know what? He might just be a member of the Buccaneer race, which dispels any illusions we might have that this is a tribe made up purely of good guys. Now, Oda-sensei hasn't explicitly revealed Blackbeard's lineage, even after 1,110 chapters of his magnum opus, but the ongoing Egghead arc left us a big old breadcrumb that's big enough to feed a flock of seagulls. The Birds, not the 80s pop band. This happened in chapter 1107, when two of Blackbeard's trusted captains, Van Augur and Katarina Devron, appeared on Egghead Island and had a conversation with J. Garcia Saturn. Essentially they, yes, even the spider-like elder, agreed that Blackbeard's lineage is quote-unquote special. Sure, it might be a red herring once Oda-sensei finally gives us the big reveal, but it's not such a reach to surmise that this special bloodline Marshall D. Teach belongs to is the Buccaneer race. There's also the fact that Blackbeard is pretty much one of the most notorious individuals in the series that the world government would love to get their hands on. And again, fascists hate freewheeling punks, especially ones with designs to rule over the world like Teach. The Buccaneers' relationship with Luffy. On the other side of the morality spectrum, of course, is Luffy. Now, at this point, we can still say that Luffy isn't a member of the Buccaneer race by blood, but he clearly has some close connections to the race. Most notable is that we've all but confirmed that Luffy is Sun God Nika reincarnated, the legendary figure from Buccaneer lore who's destined to become their savior. The qualities are all there. The raw power, especially in his Gear 5 form, Nika and Luffy's jolly disposition, and, of course, Luffy's love for freedom, liberty, and his very own individualistic traits. But his connections to the Buccaneers don't end there either. Remember, Luffy's dad, Monkey D. Dragon, and Bartholomew Kuma, a confirmed Buccaneer, are both co-founders of the Revolutionary Army. And keep in mind that the Revolutionary Army was primarily created to oppose the world government and its tyrannical laws. One might even say that its credo is based on the Buccaneer ideal of living free, a quality that Luffy can very well agree with. Hell, we can even say at this point that the rubbery protagonist of One Piece is the legacy character that will carry the flames of revolution and stick it down the world government's oppressive beehole. Of course, there's also the matter concerning the Buccaneers' connections to the Will of D. Now, that single-letter epithet deserves a video all its own, but to give you an idea, remember that the Will of D is basically given to individuals who, for all intents and purposes, will do something big in the world of One Piece. Now, Luffy and Blackbeard both have D in their names. One might be a member of the Buccaneer race itself, while the other is a reincarnation of the race's greatest warrior god. One is bent on world domination, while the other fights for the ideals of freedom and liberty. Are you guys seeing a pattern here? It's almost like Oda-sensei is setting up what would ultimately be a clash between two distinct interpretations of the Buccaneer credo. On one hand, there's Marshall D. Teach, who's taken his own freedom and liberty to engage in some less than savory activities. On the other hand, there's Luffy, arguably the purest form of what the Buccaneer virtues stand for. In any case, we can trust Oda-sensei to reveal everything in due time. But boy, is the wait making us antsy. What do you think of the Buccaneer race? Got any theories you want to share about One Piece's most elusive tribe? Tell us about it in the comments section below. And to be the first to see more amazing manga and anime content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on that notification bell. See you guys in the next one.